been subjected to a lot of questioning around their decision. And then I kind of zoomed out in my journalistic way that I do and noticed that, well, yeah, the birth rate has been dropping steadily globally for the past century, apart from the baby boom of the 1950s and 70s, 1950s to 70s, when the baby boomers were born, right? Apart from that little blip, the birth rate has been steadily declining, and that decline has dipped even lower in the 21st century. So I thought, this is actually very interesting. I've always felt like a real outlier, like this kind of anomaly in my decision not to have children. But evidently, many women, millions of women all around the world are either having fewer children or they're having none at all. If that wasn't the case, we wouldn't be seeing this steep drop off in the birth rate. And it made me realize that there was this, what I've called an unsung sisterhood of women who are grappling with this very, very important life choice, very conflicted, which many people have lots of very loud opinions about, without anywhere to come together to talk about this, any kind of forum for really digging into the deeper motivations, the deeper impacts, the deeper factors kind of like influencing our decisions in this area and our feelings about this subject even. And that was kind of when I realized that I wanted this to be my next book. So as with all of my books, it came even with when I launched the Numinous and I started investigating astrology, it was because I really was fascinated by the subject and I wanted to learn about it. And with Sober Curious, it was because I had been questioning my drinking and I wanted to find a new way to think about that and talk about that. So it came from a very personal place, but it speaks to a very universal place that we're at, I think. Absolutely.
It's really interesting because my next question is, do you mind sharing the original title of the book? I saw you had some merch, so I figured the question would be yes.
Well, this is the thing. So on it, like literally having that thought process that I was just describing, thinking about menopause, literally this title just went like it. I do this because it felt like it literally just downloaded and it was like there. The title was Selfish Cunt. Because I realized, well, and it was partly that I realized in looking back at age 42 or 43, looking back at my life, I felt so relieved and grateful that I had been free to live the life that I wanted and to make the choices that I wanted for myself. And immediately what came up was, what a selfish cunt. What a selfish cunt to have lived a life that prioritizes your own desires and needs. And then immediately after that was like, well, that's massively problematic. The fact that me living a life that feels aligned and satisfying and pleasurable to me makes me a selfish cunt. And then I realized, oh, wait, literally, because I didn't do the thing with my cunt that I am supposed to do as somebody who was born a biological woman. So it was the working title of the project right through to the very, very end. And in the end, after much internal wrestling, I decided not to go with that title because I didn't want to alienate people. I appreciate it could be, depending who you're talking to, it could be very confronting. And I didn't want to put people off who could potentially benefit from the book, but I couldn't resist using it inside the book. And honestly, like the reaction I've had pretty much across the board, I mean, I would honestly say I haven't had one person who has said, I find that offensive. I think that women en masse are ready to just say, no, that's not okay. It's not okay that living lives, the lives that suit us, is seen as selfish. And it's not okay, actually, that the worst word you can call somebody is a word for a part of our anatomy that has been so policed, so politicized, so violated. Like, it's just wrong. And so I think there's a reclamation of those two words that I think we're ready for it.
It's like really like it's giving dark feminine energy because it's just like
thinking that
selfishness is frowned upon. Like as women, I think we're all socialized. Like we have to be cooperative. We have to people please, and we have to keep silent, or we have to, do what we're expected to do. And this is really like you're taking your power back. This is very similar to what Lilith did.
It's super Lilith. It is Lilith. This is literally, she was the original selfish cunt.
Yeah. She's like, no.
No.
And I think it's really interesting because just going back to what you said about when you told people that you didn't want to have children, there was just always a response. Do you think that triggered, and a lot of time from women, do you think that triggered some, I don't want to say it's internalized misogyny, but it basically triggered their life choices? Like, I think the boomer age, like a lot of them had kids because they felt like they had to. Like, I don't even think sometimes my mom
they didn't have a choice. Adama, they didn't have a choice. Literally until 50 years ago. It was only with the advent of accessible, safe, and effective birth control, safe, legal abortion, and access to education and employment opportunities that women have actually had the option. So boomer women didn't really have the option. For some women, that option has always been there. For the majority, it has not. Like, reproduction, being a mother, has been a biological imperative. And I think that as you know, Lilith is also all about shadow work, right? So I feel like anytime there's like a violent response or a vitriolic response, often it's really indicative of an area where there's just a lot of unprocessed shadow, a lot of simmering resentment, and in this case, very righteous resentment around the fact of how little autonomy women have had over our lives until very recently. You know, it's really, I write in the book about how the generations of women born from the mid 1970s onwards are the first generations to have actually truly had access to choice. And that choice is still not available to like millions of women around the world. And that choice is very much wrapped up with concepts of privilege as well. And so it's still a work in progress, right? True choice in this area. And so, yeah, I think that the strong emotional reactions that people have, it just reflects how much unprocessed shadow there is to be processed. Like, now is the time that it's coming up. This is my Pluto on the midheaven talking. It's like, now is the time for us to do this work, you know?
Absolutely. What can you name some of just the most offensive things that you've heard from other people? I'm curious, because I think a lot of my listeners have gone through this, and I mean, I know I have my own stories of things I've heard people say.
It's things like you're just so self-obsessed, you typical selfish child-free people. It typically revolves around just being selfish, self-obsessed, immature. I was once told by a shaman that no one would take me seriously as a woman until I had children, that I'd always just be seen as immature. I mean, these are the kind of classic things. But it's interesting as well. Like, I feel like perhaps it's because I just have been quite confident. I haven't really had any major kind of nasty pushback from people in my life directly. It's mainly been just a few comments here and there online. But yeah, the things that people feel permitted to say in this subject, again, to me, that's just like, women's bodies and our choices about our bodies are still very much seen as public property in some ways, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I think in the times before the 70s, let's even just think back to like in the 19th, 20th centuries, early 20th centuries, it was just expected for women literally to have like 6 kids.
Oh, more. From the age of 60, from the age that you were old enough to be married, you would be continually having children, either pregnant, nursing, you know, basically until, I mean, life expectancy at the turn of the 20th century was 49, which is around the age that women experience menopause, you know, and that was obviously not just due to the fact that women's lives were very much about just kind of procreation. It was obviously, there've been huge advances medically and societally since then as well. But I think it's just quite interesting.